Good day, learners! A new day, a new learning. Welcome to another video lesson. Today, we are going to learn about the steps and tips on how to design a procedure to test the hypothesis. By now, you should be familiar with the idea of a hypothesis. This is a proposed explanation for scientific observations. And what's really important about a hypothesis is that when written correctly, it helps to create a well-designed experiment. But even with a solid hypothesis, designing an experiment isn't always easy because there's a lot to take into considerations. So let's take a look at the process to see how we would go about setting up our experiment based on what we're trying to test. Once a hypothesis has been formulated, it is time to design a procedure to test it. A well-designed investigation contains procedures that take into account all of the factors that could impact the results of the investigation. Keep watching this video to know the effective steps on how to design a procedure to test the hypothesis. Are you ready to know these steps? Alright, let's start then. The first step is Step A. Clarify the variables. Clarify the variables involved in the investigation by developing a table, such as the one right here. Make sure to identify the problem or the testable question. Independent variable or what is changed. Controlled variable or what remains the same. Dependent variable or the data collected in the experiment. So I have here an example. The testable question is, for example, what detergent removes stains the best? The independent, type of detergent or type of stain. The controlled, type of cloth or physical process of removal. The dependent is stain fading over time for the combination of detergent and stains. Step B. List of materials. Make a list of materials that will be used in the investigation, including the laboratory tools, your journal, or your notebook. Step C. List of the steps. List the steps needed to carry out the investigation, or what we call the procedure that we are going to follow in conducting the experiment. Step D. Estimate the time. Estimate the time it will take to complete the investigation. When we do an experiment, it's a good idea to do multiple trials. Do the same experiment at least 3 times. When we do the multiple trials of the same experiment, we can make sure that our results are consistent and not altered by random events. And for the last one, Step E. Check your work. Ask someone else to read the procedure to make sure the steps are clear. Are there any steps missing? Double check the materials list to be sure all the necessary materials are included. I am now going to share with you some tips on how to design an experiment to test your hypothesis. So number 1, the hypothesis developed should clearly state the dependent and independent variables. Another tip, the design of the procedure should be aligned with the objectives of the study. Third, the type of experiment the learners are planning to do should make sure the appropriate controls are used. This is to ensure that they are doing a fair test. A fair test is a study wherein one variable is tested at a time, while the rest of the variables that may affect the result of the study are controlled or held constant. Another tip is the design of the procedure should describe inadequate and complete details to steps that the learners will follow. The amount and nature of the materials must be properly stated. And the last tip that I'm going to share is the procedure of the experiment should describe how the learners are going to measure the change they want to observe and how they collect and interpret data from the experiment. So that's it. I hope that you learned something new today, and I'll see you again in my next video lesson. God bless everyone and have a good day. Be good!